So hello everybody, and thank you for staying later in the evening. I'm going to talk about this topic that we touched on before in several of the presentations. I would also say this is a bit of a summary, but also from a more company perspective. So we heard about all the kind of enormous demands for flexibility that you have. You listened to Claudia Niemert and her perspective on the uncertainty. I remember Harald Krüger talking about the nearly impossibility to forecast number of cars, electric cars being sold in Russia or somewhere else. So the macroeconomic changes, the technology changes, really put unprecedented, challenges, but also opportunities to the companies. Yeah? And this is obvious. And it's obvious that, as we heard in the group before, that many companies who have been set up more from a Tayloristic efficiency perspective, with deep silos, very detailed processes, how the silos are going to interact between themselves, how incentive systems are set up, how IT systems are set up. You can easily imagine that this is very hard for these kind of traditional companies that we see in many places to cope with this massive uncertainty, changes due to technology and to macroeconomics. So this automatically leads you thinking into there must be another way how to organize companies nowadays, and the answer for this one is agility. And agility, as you see on the chart there, if you think about both dimensions, flexibility on one side, like a startup who are excelling in this kind of complete independence and dynamic, and on the other side, stability with a kind of example of bureaucracy. For agility, this combines actually both perspectives. So if you talk about an agile company, don't get into the perspective that this means only chaos and teams can do what they want. That is not true. Agile companies have both elements. On one side, the flexibility with many, many teams working there, very much focused on customer-focused missions. I will come to an example in a moment. And on the other side, they have a lot of stable elements, like stable backbones, stable descriptions, role descriptions, which make operating much more stable than just like in a startup. Of course, processes, therefore, in agile organizations are different. As you can see here on the charts, what agile companies would do, they would not fragment their teams into working on several tasks at the same time. You know all the consequences of this one, always ramping up when you go to the next task with all the loss in efficiency. But they would swarm with the highest priority for the most important topics, mostly 100% dedicated people who go after one specific mission. They also would be co-located. That's a bit to the topic that we just talked about. Co-location is one of the most important factors in these agile companies. We have seen this many, many years ago when we have been benchmarking product development processes in Japanese companies especially, where you always had co-located teams instead of teams sitting in the different functional silos. At that time, when I did this benchmarking, the head of product development said, when he observed this, this is for the functional leaders as if somebody in the morning tears their blanket away, because they have to give up their own people, their expertise sitting in one floor under his complete surveillance. Co-location of teams doesn't work this way. All the expertise is in the different teams, but no longer in the separate floors, so to say, or the separate buildings where in earlier times the expertise had been sitting. And it's a lot about bringing the customer into the product development process. How this is done, many of you will know from software development, this is all about MVPs. This is not waiting until whatever, 6 months or 3 months, a task is said to be completed, but you go in there and look at intermediate work progress like an MVP to understand what the team has been doing. Very different in respect of how we are working. One example for you how you can see that in action is what I brought to you here with the ING example. ING is a large bank headquartered in the Netherlands, 35 million customers, more than 50,000 people, employees globally. And we helped ING on their transformation into an agile company. They've been working on 4 different levers: structure, people, processes, and technologies. But I want to illustrate only 2 parts which you might find interesting. Structure, they came from a structure with 30 silos, deep expertise silos, all in a Tayloristic sense. And they changed that silos. They broke up the silos into a tribe and squad system where they had at the end more than 13 tribes and more than 300 squads. Squads are these interdisciplinary teams collocated. On the people side, what they changed, and what you certainly know from a lot of traditional companies who still have personalized individual KPIs for the incentives, they went over to team incentives and combined the team incentives then, of course, with the co-located team sitting there who was responsible for a whole customer-focused process. Like, for example, real estate evaluation. One customer-specific mission, completely done with one integrated teams instead of running into different departments and trying to get stuff organized in a Tayloristic built-up company. You can also see the impact that this created. There was a delayering that was also possible by the introduction of the different teams. They went from 6 layers to 3 layers, and you can easily imagine what kind of impact that has on efficiency and speed, especially. In speed, a KPI that we used, product releases. In earlier times, it was several per year, and then they were able to bring it down to 2 to 3 weeks for one release. And you might remember also what Harald Krüger was talking about, that BMW became the most desired employer in China. I thought actually there would be some applause when he was saying this, but disappointingly no. But ING also made it. Yeah? By the introduction of this agile organization, they made it from a 12th place into the 1st place in only 2 years. So quite impressive results. And you can, as I said, with the delayering, you could also imagine that there was significant complexity reduction, translating also into good efficiency gains. So if I pull this together in the last 2 minutes again for you, in this world that we have right now, with these impossibilities of forecasting the future anymore, too many macroeconomic, political changes, too much speed in innovation from technology, an organization which is built up on silos and rigid processes and a single IT system doesn't work anymore. You have to move over to agile. So this is not a trend. This will not go away. This is the form for this environment. It is not just for digital natives. As I said, agility came from software development many years ago, but now this moved far away from software product development into all other different areas of a corporation. And it is no longer anything only for a digital company from high tech, but it moved also into insurance, in telco, in many other different sectors. Number 3, what you please should remind is agility does not mean chaos. Yeah? It has flexible elements, but it also has very structured elements. Agility is not chaos. It is the superior form how to organize. And nowadays, and the last point, agility paid out, as you saw from the example of ING, with a nice impact, especially on speed and on reputation. And so I can only encourage you to also look into agility as a new way for organization for your own corporates. Thank you very much.